Hey, what's up YouTube? Rastov here and welcome to Rastov Reviews, where today I'm going to be giving my honest opinions and my review on the Walking Dead Destinies, as I've just finished playing that over on my main channel. Links in the description, potentially on the screen. I kind of just want to go over just 5 points today. That's going to be the story, gameplay, graphics, bugs, and then just my overall opinion on whether or not you should play the game again. If you did watch the gameplay on my main channel, you'll kind of see a lot of these opinions already, but I'm going to try and flesh them out a little bit more. So there may be some spoilers in this. Actually, there will be some spoilers because you kind of can't talk about the game without spoiling a little bit. So just be warned, if you don't want spoilers for the story, maybe go play the game, watch the game, then come back and have a look at this video. So now the story takes place from the beginning of season 1 with Rick waking up in the hospital, and plays all the way through until the end of the Woodbury arc, where the governor takes or attacks the prison, and then the fallout of that, and it finishes with the end of that fight. So throughout the story, you get to make a lot of different decisions, choosing between different characters, different outcomes, things like that. Some of the biggest one that they advertised, which I thought was one of the most interesting ones, was deciding between whether or not Rick or Shane lives or dies at the farm, in Herschel's farm. So you get to pick which one you want to carry on as the leader of the group, and some of the repercussions of that one I didn't expect. Whereas in the TV show, like an example is Dale gets eaten by zombies at the farm. If you choose Shane, he just kind of like one taps the zombie that's gonna eat Dale, and all of a sudden Dale is alive and just didn't die at the farm. So there's different outcomes and impacts like that. One of the things that I think that that they could have done a little bit better was actually making these characters that were impacted by choosing a different character more prominent. Like I just said, Dale gets saved by Shane, but that's it. He's just there. You never hear from him. You never see him. You don't get to play him. Nothing like that. So it's almost like it didn't really do anything. I suppose on the one hand, like the gameplay side of things, you do get to still get his talent points and things like that. But other than that, it's kind of just, he's just there, you know? He's just kind of there, and he doesn't really have any impact on the story, which sucks. And I think that they could have done a lot more with that, you know? In my gameplay, I picked Merle instead of T-Dog. So T-Dog got left on the roof and eventually winds up in Woodbury. Merle's on our side. Now in the TV show, T-Dog ends up sacrificing himself to save Carol. And I think that it would have been really cool, instead of having your main character, either Rick or Shane, take on the governor at the end, well, depending on how you get to there, if you have T-Dog end up being the governor, and in the final fight, I think it would have been a lot cooler to have Merle come out and be like, alright, it's time to go, like, it started with us, it ends with us, sort of thing. Like, that would have been pretty cool. But yeah, again, you kind of get Merle. He has some conflicts in the group, and then after a couple of conflicts, you never really hear from him again. So I think that there could have been a lot more fleshed out in that situation. One of the things that I will say that kind of disappointed me a little bit about the story was the fact that every time you made a decision, it gave you an achievement on Steam. Well, I played it through Steam, so it gave me an achievement saying made a decision between, like Carol and Laurie, for example, was one of the ones, and you didn't actually see the impact of that decision for another like episode or two. So I made a decision, it gave me the achievement, and then I was a bit confused as to why it gave me that achievement, and then 2 episodes later Carol dies. So I think that is a bit of a bummer as well. Like, it shouldn't give you an achievement that kind of spoils what's going to happen, considering the game is basically story and everything else is kind of just not needed. Now, onto the graphics. I think it's quite obvious from anyone that's seen any image of any of the faces from the game that they look quite cursed. They are very derpy, they don't look proportional, they look like incredibly bad knockoffs of the actual actors. And I don't know for certain, but it made me kind of feel like if they made them look any closer to the actual actors, that they would have had to have paid them likeness rights, potentially, but I don't know. But yeah, if you watch the series or play the game, you'll 100% know what I'm talking about. There'll be some of it on screen now, just showing some of the cursed faces, specifically with like Shane and Rick. It just It looks incredibly silly, some of these faces. They just don't make any sense. Aside from that, I wasn't really bothered by any of the other graphics in the game, like the actual land, like the levels. They looked fine. A lot of reused assets, that's fine too. That part didn't really bother me at all. I think one thing that kind of let me down a little bit about it was if you pick Shane in the story, he kind of just gets Rick's body, but with his face. So he gets the long hair and the beard, and in one cutscene in the final part of the game, it actually shows Rick and Daryl, but because it's far away, it looks like they tried not to do it that way. But it is actually Rick in there. I looked and I zoomed in on it, so I'm pretty confident that it was Rick. So as far as the graphics are concerned, I think, yeah, they're okay. They're not bad. I actually read a comment online saying that they liken it to a PS2 game. I think it's probably a little bit better than that, but it's not the best. It's not the best graphical game that I've played in a while, or recently. Don't play this game if you're looking for fantastic graphics, but if it doesn't really bother you and you're there for the story, you won't really bother you too much. You'll get some laughs. Now, the gameplay side of things, it was incredibly difficult to actually get into the gameplay when I first started. Like, trying to figure out the controls. If you're using a controller on Steam and it's a PlayStation controller, it only supports Xbox and gamepad button layouts. So where it's telling me to press Y, I'm trying to remember, is that triangle or square, and I genuinely can't remember. So that part of it was kind of rough. The actual responsiveness of a lot of these, I guess, actions, you'd press the button and it wouldn't happen, or you'd press the button and you'd attack and you'd go straight through a zombie. Towards the end of the game, well, it's kind of interesting actually. So I played before they patched human players. So there's a scene in the hospital where it does like a flashback of Shane going through the hospital to get to Rick. That was one of the most painful levels I've ever done, because they just run away from you. It's just run, 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 roll, roll, roll. Just, it was so difficult to hit. Every time you swung, roll. Every time you tried to take a swing at them, like roll. Every time you tried to shoot them, roll. Like, it was painful. And then they patched it, and there was still a little bit of it. It was a lot more responsive. So like you'd actually connect with them and they wouldn't just dodge everything. But it was a bit of a painful, it was a bit painful to say the least. The gameplay, I wish it was better. It was honestly horrible. It was really bad. It wasn't responsive. It was the most frustrating part of the game. It makes me sad because I feel like people hated on the game just from what I read online after I started playing it. And I feel like it didn't do itself any favors just having the jank combat. Now, what I will say is that it looks like the developers are actually patching it to try and make it a little bit better, so that's good. Who knows, maybe in a year's time after they've fixed everything up, it might be a really good game, who knows. But for right now, as of today, Boxing Day in New Zealand, that's not the one, it's not the play. So unfortunately, the gameplay just kind of lets the game down. Moving on to the bugs, I didn't experience many bugs. There were a couple of little glitches that you could kind of see. Woodbury, for example, in my game, when Daryl fought the governor ended up getting stuck behind the zombies. They wouldn't grab him, and then he had a shotgun. So I had to somehow try and finesse him out of that. In the fight with Shane and T-Dog just randomly charged across the map like Illidan in World of Warcraft. Like, he just gone. And it screwed up the camera. The camera wasn't the best. Like, if you were up against a wall, it would kind of be in really awkward positions. I didn't experience, like, game crashes or anything like that, but it was just kind of... The bugs felt more like gameplay problems rather than actual bugs. So, the game ran well. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 points where it lagged. There wasn't anything that seemed like a bug. It just more seemed like bad gameplay. Alright, so my overall opinions on the game. I feel bad. Because I actually really liked the story. The story was cool, the decisions were awesome, but the graphics... You know what, the graphics were like mid. It's okay, it doesn't really bother me. The gameplay was so bad, I wouldn't play the game again to look at different decisions. I'd Google it or look it up on YouTube, because playing through those levels is painful. It doesn't change. Yes, there's different weapons, but it's basically the same weapon, it just attacks slightly faster or slightly slower, or does slightly more damage or slightly less damage depending on it. So there's not really a lot of variation. The aiming was terrible. I should have talked about that in the gameplay section, but the aiming was absolutely horrible. Yeah, the gameplay completely let down the game, and it's in the name. So if this was a TV show, like you know how Marvel did their what ifs, which is not saying that's where I got the what if idea from for my series, but if this was a TV show, I'd have watched it and I'd have loved it. It would have been fantastic. But because it's a game and ultimately you have to play the game, nah, I couldn't recommend playing it, to be honest. I'd watch it on YouTube. I think that would be the best thing. So if you're wanting to see what happens, Google it, watch it on YouTube, watch my series, watch other people's series. I don't think it's worth the money. And that's sad, because I feel like a game like this, coming with such a huge name like Walking Dead, had such potential. And I think that's sad. So I'm not going to give it a rating. I'm just going to say you probably don't need to play this one. If you want to see the different story points, then just watch them somewhere else. Game developers, if you ever watch this, I don't know if you will. I'm sorry. I tried my best to enjoy your game. You can tell by just watching my series, I did my best to be positive, but by the end of it, it just got to me. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have any feedback on how I gave my review, please give me some feedback. That would be fantastic. Always striving to be better. If there's anything else you want me to cover in these reviews when I do put them out, let me know. And other than that, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, have a great day, take care, peace, all that good stuff. Bye-bye.